Welcome to our first flip lesson of the year. This one is called Graphing Linear Functions. This is day 3 of our linear functions unit. What we're going to do today is start off by talking about some things you guys have already seen and get into some things that might be a little bit different. First thing we should know, and this is something you guys have seen before, are 4 types of slope. There are positive slope, negative slope, zero slope, and undefined slope. If you look at the pictures, you can see that if you were to trace each picture from left to right, this one is a positive slope because it goes up as you look at it from left to right. Our second example, same thing, if you were to just trace that line, it's going to go down as you go left to right. And again, that's going to go down as you look at it from left to right. Our third example is going to be zero slope. Zero slope is a horizontal line. Every single horizontal line that is graphed, the y values are going to stay the same. And then our last type of slope, which you should already know about, is undefined slope. An undefined slope is going to be a line that is a vertical line, one that goes straight up and down. And in this case, what's going to stay the same as our x values are going to stay the same. Now, in addition to our 4 types of slope, we should be able to write the equations of lines pretty easily. As you can see here, we're talking about horizontal lines and vertical lines to start. And again, if we're talking about a horizontal line, our y value is going to be constant, which means it's going to stay the same. Vertical line, our x value is going to stay constant. Now, if you look at the exercise, it says for the horizontal and vertical lines below, write down the 2 points on the line, state what the points share in common, state the line's equation. Now, our first example, if you take a good look at it, there are 2 points that are already highlighted. Now, let's identify the coordinates of those points, starting with the one on the left. If I start at the origin, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 spaces to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces up. That would be the point -3, comma, +4. The second point, the one that's on the right-hand side, again, starting at the origin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boxes to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces up, that's the point 5, comma, 4. Now, if you identify 2 points that are on that horizontal line, you're going to notice that our y values are the same. Therefore, our equation is going to be y is equal to, because that's the value that's the same, and then it's just the number of each y value, which is y is equal to 4. Now, our next example, same idea, but we've got a vertical line. And again, if you take a close look, there are 2 points that are already highlighted. So I'm just going to kind of darken them in a little bit. Identifying the point at the top, starting at the origin, 2 spaces to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces up. That would be the point at 2, comma, 4. The second point, the one on the bottom, is going to be, again, 2 spaces to the right and 1 space down. So that's going to be 2, comma, -1. If you take a good look, you're going to notice that our x values are the same. For a vertical line, the equation is always going to be x is equal to, and it's whatever that number is. X values are the same, therefore it's x is equal to +2. Now, our next couple of examples are the same basic idea. My suggestion would be pause the video for a couple seconds, answer these questions, then press play again. I'm going to go through and explain. Now, you can pick any 2 points you want to on any of these lines, and you're going to notice things are the same. So if I were to just grab 2 points on the line that I see here, and I take a look at it, I'm going to notice that in both cases, the x value is going to be the same. Any vertical line, it's always going to be x is equal to, and the x value of every point on this line is at +3. So the equation of that line is +3. Same thing is true with letter B. With letter B, if I were to identify any points on the line that I was given, I'm going to notice that they're going to have the same x value. So I'm going to count the x value. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to the left. So a vertical line is always x is equal to, and the x value of every point on that line is going to be x is equal to 4. Now, our last example on this slide is where we have horizontal lines. Same thing. If you want to find a couple of points, decide what they have in common, you're going to find that they have the same y value. So our equation is always going to be y equals, and the y value of the points that are on that line are going to be y is equal to -1. Now, our next slide is going to talk about what's called slope-intercept form of the line, which you guys should know. Slope-intercept form of the line is y is equal to mx plus b. You should know that m is going to be your slope. That's going to be your change in y over your change in x. And the b value is going to be your y-intercept. And your y-intercept is nothing more than where the graph touches the y-axis. If you look at our exercise number 3, it says on the grid, graph the equation y is equal to -2x plus 1. First, identify its slope and its y-intercept. Now, the slope, as I said before, is the number in front of the x, so that's going to be a -2. The y-intercept is the number that's all by itself. That's going to be 1. Now, the y-intercept is 1. Technically, it's a point, and that point is going to be located at 0, comma 1. To graph the line is really pretty simple. You're going to start by graphing your y-intercept at 0, comma +1. I'm going to put a point at 0, comma, positive 1. Then I'm going to follow the flow of my slope. My slope is negative 2, so that means I'm going to start at the point I just plotted. I'm going to go down 2 spaces and 1 to the right. And then I'm going to go down 2 spaces and 1 to the right. We must graph a minimum of 3 points. You can graph 4 if you'd like to, but it has to be a minimum of 3. Once you have that minimum of 3, you're going to use your straight edge, and you're going to connect those points with that straight edge. Once you've connected the points with your straight edge, you're going to go ahead and you're going to label that line. Now please put an arrow on both ends of the line. Put an arrow on both ends of the line and label it with the equation that we started with. That equation we started with was y is equal to negative 2x plus 1. Now our next example is basically the same idea. I'm going to identify my slope. My slope is going to be the number that's in front of my x. My y-intercept is going to be the number by itself. In this case, the slope is going to be 3 over 2. The y-intercept is going to be negative 3. That is a point at 0, comma, negative 3. Once again, I'm going to plot my y-intercept first. I'm going to go down 3 spaces from the origin. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to follow the pattern of my slope. The top number tells me that I'm going to go up by 3. 1, 2, 3. The bottom number of that fraction tells me to go 2 to the right. So it's up 3 and 2 to the right. Just like we did in the last question, it is a minimum of 3 points. Once you have a minimum of 3 points, you're going to use your straight edge, and you're going to connect those points. Once you've connected those points, again, please make sure that you put an arrow on both directions, and then you're going to label it with the equation of the line. In this case, the equation of the line was y is equal to 3 over 2x, and then minus 3. If we can identify the slope and identify the y-intercept, graphing the line is really pretty easy. Now, there are going to be some questions where it's not going to be quite as straightforward to find the slope and the y-intercept. We might have to do a little bit of work first, and this is an example of that. If you look at the equation that we were given, this one is not solved for y. So if we'd like to graph a linear equation, and it's not solved for y, all we have to do is get y by itself. Once we have y by itself, we can identify the slope and the y-intercept. All right, so in this case, I'm going to go 2y minus 6x is equal to 12. What I'm going to do is identify the variable I'm trying to solve for, which in this case is y. And I'm going to get everything that's connected to the y away from it. I'm going to add 6x to both sides of the equal sign. That will give me 2 times y is equal to 6x plus 12. Now the last thing I have to do is get rid of the 2. The 2 is connected by multiplication, so I'm going to divide everything by 2, and that'll give me that y is equal to 3x plus 6. Once I have y by itself, identifying my slope and my y-intercept is really simple. The slope is the number that's in front of the x, so that slope is going to be 3. My y-intercept is the number that's all by itself, which is going to be 6. As I've said several times, that's technically the point located at 0, 6. Now our next 2 examples are very similar to the one that we just did. And like I said before, it might be a good idea to pause the video, try these 2 examples, and then check it by watching the video as we go. Now, our first one says 3y minus 3x is equal to 15. Again, I'd like to get y to be all by itself, so I'm going to start by adding 3x to both sides. When I do that, I'm going to get 3 times y is equal to 3x plus 15. The last thing I have to do to get y by itself is recognize that that 3 is connected by multiplication, so I'm going to undo it with division. Divide everything by 3. That will give me y is equal to x plus 5. I can now identify my slope and my y-intercept. Now my slope is the number in front of x, and if you look at it, it looks like maybe there's no number in front of x. Please remember that any variable that has no number written has a coefficient of 1, so our slope in this case would be 1. Our y-intercept is the number by itself, so that's 5, which as I mentioned is technically the point at 0, 5. Now the last example on this slide is really pretty simple. We like to get y by itself. To get y by itself, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5x from both sides. If I subtract 5x from both sides, I get 2 times y is equal to negative 5x and then minus 8. Now the last thing again to get y by itself is to divide everything by 2. That y is connected to the 2 by multiplication, so all we have to do is just divide everything by that 2. When we divide everything by 2, we're going to end up with y is equal to negative 5 over 2x and then minus 4. Lastly, we're going to identify our slope and our y-intercept. Our slope is the number in front of x, so that's going to be negative 5 over 2. Our y-intercept would be negative 4, which again is the point at 0, negative 4. Now, the video we watched today has notes of things that you guys have seen and some things that you haven't. We're going to do a little practice with it first thing on Monday, and then we're going to continue with our unit.